I'm probably going to make some people mad with this one. Let's look at a little bit of a recent kerfuffle in the Star Citizen community. We're all about kerfuffles. I want to start this out by saying this isn't like I feel like the current fervor surrounding this whole Inside Star Citizen thing with exploration gameplay being mentioned it's pulling on the heartstrings. It's getting people who are really passionate about exploration. I subscribe to that. Love exploration. It's pretty cool. I think it attracts a lot of people to space games, which gives it a huge expectation. But I think it's also bringing out people who just kind of want to be mad and are just finding something to be mad at. Like, I am definitely the kind of person who will bring up stuff if it's frustrating me. I was told so many times after the Flight Blades video that I made that I always am negative. So I guess I get it. I get the negativity. But I feel like people are genuinely kind of misleading folks about exploration gameplay and sort of what it's supposed to be, and taking like one small little segment of somebody's sentence and deriving an entirety of the plans for a video game from that. So I figured we'd take a look at this, add some context to why people are talking about exploration, and then go through the various videos, both old and extremely new, that talk about what exploration gameplay is supposed to be and why it's not actually just flying to outposts and shooting people. Because that's what I see. I mean, this has become a big topic, especially on Reddit. I'm sure on Spectrum. I've seen it on Discord, Twitter, Blue Sky, all the places. You'll just kind of find threads talking about how they mentioned this exploration. People have been unhappy because it makes people have been reacting to it and saying, well, he said this is exploration gameplay. And maybe you don't get the chance to watch the actual video, but when you don't remember that he didn't say that, you think, oh, well, they are really putting together the game this year. A lot of people jumped into Star Citizen. I don't even think they know how unfinished this game is. I think a lot of people are still operating under the idea that this game is basically finished and they're just kind of buttoning up some things and getting the last bits in. And I'm like, we're so far away from this working how it's supposed to. But you can I'm not going to take you through all these. Like, we don't need to focus on what people are saying about it that they dislike. Just know that there's a lot of confusion being thrown around this. So first, let's start off by seeing what actually caused all this uproar. We'll pick apart the sentence itself, and then we'll go from there.
Stormbreaker is all about taking the next step in exploration gameplay. Making exploration work in Star Citizen actually requires you to go out and build locations that players want to visit. That's what we're doing now.
We were trying.
Okay, so it's like a two-part sentence, right? It's almost like it's two sentences. First, he says, Stormbreaker is all about taking the next step in exploration gameplay. Can you imagine if somebody came out and they were like, yeah, we added scanning mineable asteroids, and this is the next step in exploration gameplay, and people were just like, oh my god, all of exploration is going to be mining asteroids. Oh, I think already just from that you can kind of tell he's not saying this is the entirety of exploration gameplay. But I also think he's not, like, it was a really bad choice of words. I don't know why he's using a buzzword like exploration there, but he's basically just saying we're creating more locations to find, right? And he clarifies that. Doesn't even leave it left alone. He clarifies that in the very next sentence.
Making exploration work in Star Citizen actually requires you to go out and build locations that players want to visit. That's what we're doing now.
We were trying.
So, like, I don't know. I think this was really easy to understand, and I think, again, it's easy for somebody who is excited about exploration to hear that and then see other people react and jump in with that reaction and be like, oh man, he's right. They just said this is exploration. Where are we going to go from here? But in reality, this is just another, like, they're saying something off the cuff that's a little marketing, a little hype, a little bit fun words with buzzwords, and it's being taken much further than it probably needs to be. I would say it's more likely if they were going to say something extreme like how exploration is supposed to play out, that would come out on Star Citizen Live, not an Inside Star Citizen. To push that point forward, we're going to go and look at a video from last year, CitizenCon last year, right? So this is also where I'm coming at this from. Even if he said this in Inside Star Citizen right now, people are choosing to ignore all of the other conversations surrounding exploration. And yes, I know, we've even talked about it. They sort of excuse that old videos might not ring true or might not actually cover everything. But this isn't an old video. This is like 6 months ago. So if you don't believe this, then there's no point in believing the ISC. I'll let Ian here talk about Starchitect, which focuses on creating the locations that we're supposed to find, as he just mentioned in Stormbreaker they're doing, to further emphasize sort of the whole point of all this hubbub.
Going forward, this doesn't really scale with how we want to go forward with the game. Server meshing is about to arrive, and we're going to have a way higher player count. So those 73 bunkers across Stanton just won't cut it. But in general, it's also pretty barren. There's not much for you to explore and find stuff out there. So there's no exploration gameplay. You haven't really put your character to use for the way that you should. So this means we need to go bigger, which means we need to change our workflow. And with any workflow means we need to first establish a new benchmark.
Okay. So if you were watching CitizenCon last year, you remember this. They're creating a system that creates hundreds, if not thousands, of points of interest. Will it work? I don't know. But why would they do this if all of exploration was just going to be going to these locations that are saved for you to go to and run through some like planned event? It's not the kind of stuff that they're talking about during this presentation or that they've talked about in the past. And they give a pretty good here. See if I could find where he talks about this. And like, here's the whole point of this, I feel, is that they want there to be, you can call this a raid, you can call it a sandbox activity. I don't really think it matters that much. The point of this is that they're trying to make things that players run through when they find them, and they're trying to find more ways for them to find them. They said during this same CitizenCon that they were trying to take us away from the Moby-Glass. This is them just trying to do that, test this out, validate it. But I do think that things like the Hathor facilities, things like the ADP facilities out in Pyro, we're going to see space stations that handle this sort of role. We're going to see other underground facilities that handle this role, bunkers. All those things will likely have a little story attached to them, a little narrative design attached to them that you could run through or you can completely ignore. And I think that's part of why they're saying this is a step towards exploration, because we're building the places that you will find when you explore, and then you can get sucked into those places to do things. I don't think all of these places are going to be like that, though. And we're getting that from this system.
We've got farms, mining outposts, but even our older locations, such as the bunkers that you found on Stanton.
Thank you. I like the haircut. Courtesy of Mrs. Tomato. Yeah, Discovery works.
So, let's look at an example and kind of use the tool to really, make a location. We can define the rules, as I've mentioned a couple times by now. So for our mining outpost, it wants to be near a resource. We can specify what this resource needs to be. But we can also give it suggestions where sometimes you'd find it here and sometimes you wouldn't. If the location has refineries, it might want to be near water to refine the resources. Then secondly, we can define what buildings should be there. So obviously we need mining buildings, houses for people to live as well, and even power buildings that we can leverage with the resource network. Starchitect will intelligently figure out where the place is and what needs to be at the location. Next up, farms. Its rules, well, temperature. Not every plant can live in every temperature, but the same with soil type. Only certain plants can be in certain grounds. And then we can query the seed map to determine what plants you would find there. What are the harvestables?
This is like, what are the harvestables he's saying, right? We can plant the seed map. Yeah, all this stuff about changing the spawns. And then you go back and you can look in this very monthly report. And trust me, this is not the only monthly report with signs of this kind of stuff, where they're saying we're working on improving harvestables and loot systems to address various performance issues and, more importantly, give the designers more control over how harvestables and loot are spawned. Wow, that's extremely close to making sure that things spawn in certain places so people can find them. You know what else is like that? Animal hunting. Crazy that we started getting animal hunting contracts that, kind of tell you to go look for stuff out in the verse. These are all parts of exploration gameplay that aren't even, they're not secrets. They're not hiding. We talk about this a lot. So it's not hard to see that there's more to exploration than just going up and doing some pre-made so-called sandbox activity, raid, whatever you want to call it. Seed maps, guys. Like, you got to find specific plants in certain places because the things you want to craft to get ahead in the economy require those plants, and nobody else has them. Copions in the Arctic area, in the tundra area, that's literally being tasked with finding something. And it's just the same kind of thing with this outpost. They're just adding more and more things in. I don't think people are going to call it exploration gameplay until there's like a contract that tells you to find something and then you get paid. But I guess that's like, we already do that with the Copions. I think there is something significant for every person that defines what exploration gameplay is. And all of us might have a different opinion of that, but they're clearly not just going to, people aren't going to acknowledge this stuff until CIG passes some threshold here. Whether that's storing and sharing the locations, getting paid for getting those locations or what. There's some line that they've got to cross that'll get people more excited. And at some point... Tomato will be with you shortly. Okay, sir. At some point, I think we're going to get there. And I think that's not too far away. But here's a little bit about derelict ships he was talking about.
Currently. Rules, well, they'd be close to anti-air because I would be shot down. But even in harsh flight conditions, such as mountains or low visibility, you'd probably most commonly find them. Targets, well, crash ship parts, of course. Sometimes you'd find the full remains of a javelin, and the other time you might just find the nose of a starfare laying around. So, let's talk about coherency. Sure, we can scatter all these locations everywhere on the planet, and you'll find them in places they make one thing. I expect to find something similar, or something else. We want to tell tighter stories, such as the people's lives, but also logical exploration. If I find one thing, I expect to find something similar, or something else nearby. We also need more data control. What defines one mining outpost being different from the other ones, aside from the harvestables? And also give the narrative developments. Make sure, people build near rivers, on mountains, they build near town halls, they build near distribution centers. So to hit that bit of our benchmark, we make sure that locations are near each other and group them together. The effect it gives is a fully developed landscape with vistas and points of interest all over. And we group them together in what we like to call a cluster, like this one, that has 13 locations. Let's talk about clusters.
All right, this is a little less exploration focused, but just to give you an idea of what they have planned for planets, again, this is their plan.
Just like our locations, we can put clusters near other clusters, and we group them together, ranging between 10 to 15 locations each. And we group this into what we call a sector. Like this one, that has about 120 locations. However, on a planetary scale, we can define how many sectors we should have, with each their own data and persona. And every single one of these locations is now ready for the mission system to hook up and give you gameplay, and for you to find a bunch of places on your own. And just on this side of the planet, can you guess the number? We've got about 3,042 locations.
Now, super impressive. Everybody clapped and stood up. Somebody accidentally dropped their baby. They were so excited. But like, the idea of this excites me. Looking at it doesn't really get me all that excited because I don't know how close they can get to doing something like this, or if they do, how much it will actually tie into the mission system. But the intent is there. And my whole point of this is like, if you're going to look at that inside Star Citizen and take the one half of the sentence where the guy says something that like kind of hints at what might lead to exploration gameplay in the future, then you can't look at this and decide that they're not going to make a bunch of locations for us to find on our own when they're literally saying a bunch of locations to find on your own.
And just on this side of the...
I think he says it in here somewhere.
And every single one of these locations is now ready for the mission system to hook up and give you gameplay. And for you to find a bunch of places on your own.
Like, he says it, right? So are we going to just ignore that and only listen to the ISC? I don't know. It's your choice. But I'm just trying to bring you the information. Now, that's not all. They've talked about exploration. No, my friends, there's more. Finding resources. This was also laid out just last year at CitizenCon, where Torsten, the same person who was talking about the hacking we looked at earlier today, told us about how exploration will factor into finding resources. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Questions we have to meaningfully involve them in the crafting process. Especially for the more advanced blueprints, you can expect that it will require materials from multiple sources. And, as already mentioned by Jacob, pay attention to the quality. If you want to have the perfect item, you also need the best quality. Here, the best...
I'm just going to go back so Jacob can actually explain that to us, because this is really key. This is how they're planning on making crafting really factor into exploration. Having different qualities of materials obviously means we're going to have a lot of variation in materials, which means a lot of variation in crafting, which means a lot of value to the people who try harder. So if you can find the best stuff, there is a chance that this will drive some of the most intense exploration. And yeah, this is like very, very similar to Star Wars Galaxies and what a lot of people have been wanting to see from a sci-fi MMO for a while.
Those tiers of quality that Jacob mentioned are unlocked through blueprint research. Research requires a research...
Sorry, here we go, here's quality.
From raw resources through the refining process to influence what that batch of materials is best used for in crafting. High quality is more desirable overall, but is more rare, and there are still important uses for low quality materials. More on that later. All raw materials you find in the verse will have a quality rating that's generated based on some rules, the same kind of rules you heard about from the Planet Tech team yesterday. You'll find the same material in many places, but with varying qualities, so you might want to explore to find the best. Some materials that...
He said the explore word, isn't that crazy? That must not mean what he meant, though. Exploration is just these sandbox activities, right? I'm sorry.
Already rare will be even more valuable if you can find them with high quality.
Okay.
But what's quality for?
Oh, I'll let him talk about this.
Alongside quality, we're introducing a new item stat system to the game. This will allow relevant properties of craftable items to be affected by the quality of materials used to craft them. For resources, just a single quality rating is sufficient to provide variation, but craftable items have such diverse purposes that we need a more detailed system to provide both progression and customization options. We aim to have meaningful item stats for all craftable items, but some examples would be the damage and fire rate of a gun, the wear resistance of a ship component, or even the satiation provided by eating a hot dog.
Bro, what is that on the hot dog? It really makes me not want to eat a hot dog. So there is how exploration is supposed to factor into crafting and finding resources, which I think is... I know that disappoints people, the idea of just finding resources as exploration, but I think that's probably the bread and potatoes of exploration. Like, you got to find what other people want. Yes, sometimes people will want alternative entrances to other star systems. Most of the time, though, people just want to find good resources, good places, good shipwrecks for some exploration, very valuable artifacts, maybe like crashed derelict alien ships, an outpost here and there. But yeah, I think folks maybe want more from exploration than might make sense. And that might also be where some of the disappointment comes from. But I still think at the end of the day, if you just watch all of the stuff they've talked about in the past about this, it's as reliable information as what ISC was last week. Here's another bit that I think really leads into the importance of exploration and finding the right places. This is them talking about basically just finding a place to put down your own base.
Here's a concept of construction ER. From here, we get a more detailed view of the land. Where can and can't I settle? For an example, inside a nature reserve, construction will be prohibited. Are nearby areas flat enough to place my structures on? Are there any underground extraction deposits nearby? And if so, what are their quality and quantity?
So there is another reference to that quality again, basically saying there will be ground resource deposits around planets that will have a specific resource and specific quality that people gonna be paying money. This is so easy to see. You can even go forward. I'm gonna spoil this a little bit for you, but we'll get back to this slide a little bit later. And look at the slide for the guilds and see that there are literally location mapping missions under the Explorer rank for the Science Guild. It was laid out at CitizenCon that this is going to be the kind of thing you do as an explorer. You go around, you find the best places with the best resources on planets, you turn in the data, and that's where bases and stuff can be set down.
Let's say we found a good place to start building our base. Then next up, we need to find a good place for our first structure.
And they've also said that resources are going to not despawn, but they won't respawn in the exact same location. So you're going to have to find more resources at some point. It's a loop. And that, again, maybe that's not exactly what you want from exploration, but it is something that they're clearly building into how the game works to make it happen. Here's another quick look at how they want to include some of the other parts of the game in this so-called exploration loop of gameplay. This is from Inside Star Citizen in 2022, mainly focused on salvaging. Okay, yeah, you can restart.
The salvage feature is really trying to cater
Bread and potatoes. Yeah, I totally meant meat and potatoes, didn't I? Just shoving your French fries inside of a loaf of
to
sourdough.
people who want the diversity and exploration type gameplay.
Whoa! What did he say?
To people who want the diversity and exploration type gameplay.
No. I was told Stormbreaker is the only way people are getting exploration gameplay. I think he's wrong here.
You might find debris fields of a long lost battle, or on your discovery tour you find a destroyed ship.
I'm excited about players playing this and salvaging wrecks of ships in the PU.
Can't possibly imagine how that might lead to exploration gameplay, though. So this isn't really much to look at. It kind of explains the point right there. It's just all of these different things, from minerals to derelicts to locations to, yes, that's right, guys, even random conflicts going on at places. These are all just things to find when you're out looking around. Doesn't mean that exploration is linked to that one thing. And Sorry if it's been a little facetious so far, but I've just been kind of flabbergasted. I don't really use the words fake outrage very often. I don't think I've ever used that word, but this genuinely feels a little bit fake because, again, I think there are plenty of people who are actually worried about exploration gameplay, but I think there is like a group of people who are just like straight choosing not to not to remember all of these other things they've said about exploration gameplay, even in just the last 6 months. This is Chris Roberts and Rich Tyrer, the people in charge of this whole program. Maybe you think the devs are going to make exploration bad, but generally from what I hear, Chris is kind of a micromanager. And if you want something to go a certain way in the game, it's going to go a certain way in the game, whether that's good or bad. So when you hear him talk about quantum boosting and how it fits into exploration gameplay again, I think we can somewhat rest assured, again, if we're going to take what the ISC said as true, rest assured that at least in the last couple Citizen Cons, this stuff might be leading somewhere, especially since quantum boosting has almost made it into the game at this point, almost soon.
The PU, and it's something that we really wanted to have in Squadron, and we really should be in the PU, which is, well, what's that over there that's 10,000 kilometers away? The equivalent of being on a planet and going, there's a mountain over there, I can see it, I don't know what's on it, but I'm going to drive over there or walk over to that mountain. And so the idea with sort of the scanning is like the wave goes out and you'll pick up things 10, 20, 30,000 kilometers away. So you definitely won't be able to understand what's there, but you'll say, there's something
There's a point
there.
of interest.
There's a point of interest. And so you'll be able to map things and then we need to get there. But the quantum travel, spooling up, spooling down, and so this is the whole the idea of quantum boost is your sort of mid-level traversal speed, where it allows you, it's probably about 10th the speed of the full quantum travel, sort of, not using all the quantum juice, if you want to think of it that way, but it allows you to sort of get there pretty quickly and, also appreciate the environment you're going through, and, get over there. Oh, I go up to the mountain. Okay, no, I can see what's there. Oh, there's trees here. Oh, that's really cool. And that opens up a whole bunch of gameplay. I mean, definitely helps out in Squadron, but in the PU it's massive because in the PU, when this rolls into the PU,
the freaking another Frenchie put the dancing emote that whenever Chris Roberts talks and it's cuts his hands. Oh, dude, that's hilarious. I'm sorry I just interrupted this. That
Squadron, but in the PU it's massive because in the PU, when this rolls into the PU, now you can have exploration gameplay in space. So, for instance, you could
Which we've never had.
Yeah, we've never had. So you could be in a big nebula gas cloud and you scan and I get a contact 20k away. Okay, I'm going to boost over to see whether. I come up. Oh, look, it's a derelict, or there's a abandoned mining station. There's group of rocks over here, or I go over here, and we can even in the PU be in a case where you can procedurally generate some points of interest when you start to scan that you can go and visit. So
like it's not like he's specifically saying that exploration is going to be different. You can say all you want that Chris Roberts might not get his ideas into the game, but clearly his idea around exploration is based more around the idea of finding valuables out there somewhere and not surrounded by combat all the time. And I think that's one of the big things people were worried about, is that it's just always going to be combat focused. Right now, people are very convinced that Star Citizen's a combat game for reasons. Like they market combat a ton. So much.
I think the whole idea of sort of these three sort of levels of traversal. One is your sort of regular non-quantum one, where you're just using your regular thrusters, which is much more sort of limited and works for combat and stuff like that. Then there's the quantum boost, which is sort of to fast run over to a place, and then there's the quantum travel, which is the really long, I'm going to go to this planet that's 500,000 kilometers away and I'm going to be in quantum for 5 minutes to get there. And I think that's going to open up a huge amount in the PU. It makes a big difference to the gameplay. It makes the exploring in Squadron in space feel much bigger.
Yeah.
Because that was the thing we were trying to follow. And I think it's a problem in the PU right now is when you're in space, it's sort of like,
Yeah, dude, like that's the kind of thing that they could show from Squadron. Just a little bit of this style of exploration they're talking about. I think that would put kind of a lot of worries to rest.
most of it is
point to point.
It's empty for you, right? It's like you.
So we already heard this part, but they play a video here of
See it
it.
one more time here.
So just to call out, that's going to be the old HUD.
Yeah,
That is the old HUD. That's too busy.
that's the next old HUD.
Yeah.
Earlier
Yeah.
we were showing the old HUD.
So we've done a scan here. That's also the old point of interest, because the point of interest will be just points.
Yeah.
But basically, we've done a scan. We've got some points of interest that are, multiple 10Ks away.
And you can see the distance there. It says 13,000 kilometers on the right-hand side. So this is obviously just placeholder UI for the quantum boost. But again, you can just boost over there. And it obviously has this interactive gameplay, which obviously went into...
And this, by the way, that's all programmer work in progress from Yogi on the quantum boost mechanism, because you're just going to have to stay in the zone to keep in boost, otherwise you'll
The auto zone.
fall out of boost. But we've gone over to the planet here. So what it's allowing you to do is sort of have that.
See? And then they could just like put random asteroid facilities and derelict stations at the end of these places and be like, there's loot in here, yay. Or like you go in and you find a salvage crew that went in there and died, and you get their data pad talking about how they contracted a virus. Or like put something interesting at the end of it all. This is fun to look at because this is, once again, just laying out exploration gameplay pretty clearly. And this is more the contracts and mission side. So if you're not into the whole sandbox, go and find something yourself, this is where you can get actual contracts telling you to go find things and then get paid for that. We're already kind of getting these. The whole hunting animal stuff, not quite exploration, but it's getting pretty close to what I guess you could traditionally say is an explorer kind of thing.
For those who dream of exploring, I'm sure we have a couple here. We have the Academy of Sciences that was brought up yesterday in the social presentation, if you saw that. This is a science guild that will include factions like the Imperial Cartography Center, who will task you with a variety of missions to better understand our universe, such as sending you into a nebula to do deep scans, or finally seeing what's at the bottom of that planetary canyon. We're going to have a new faction called High Point Wilderness Specialists, who will offer missions associated with the various fauna that we're starting to get into the game, from population control missions to harvesting specific resources for research. Now, I don't know if we have some people who'd like to do combat, but our combat guilds were doing something a little different.
Yeah, combat's all exploration. Shut up, man. Okay, last little bit. This is like a really, really small tidbit that was in CitizenCon 2023. It's not a huge statement about exploration, but it does kind of sort of speak towards where they want to go with data and maps and trying to make maps matter in the game. So it's not, again, not a huge point, but just listen to what he says here.
You can rotate it, and you can even cycle the floors that you're on to isolate the visuals of the floor that you're on. So our current objective, it's much more interesting if we can actually take this on the go. So let's download it to our data bank.
There we go.
As you'll notice, we now have the representation of the environment in the upper left corner of our visor.
Freaking maps, dude, yes!
Now, the thing that's really interesting to note at this point is not all environments will have such a convenient kiosk available. You may encounter run-down settlements, or you might come across a cave that no one else has ever set foot on before. What will happen in this instance is your radar will incrementally update your map, and it will incrementally reveal your environment and just save that to your data bank. So you kind of reveal it incrementally. So
it happens in increments. Sounds kind of exploration focused though, right?
This map, what we see in the upper left corner of our visor, is not really just a map. What it really is actually data. it's our radar. And we can see contacts on our radar as we scan. And it's basically what we have available stored in our data bank. So because we have the location data saved to our data bank, we can obviously access that via our mobiGlas. So let's go ahead and pull it up in our mobiGlas, because this is going to get really interesting.
Yeah! Maps!
So Bone, I would like you to cycle between the different floors for us, please.
All right, so basically what he's going to show here is like you got a marker data bank up here, and you can set markers in places, and somewhere here you're going to save it. Yeah, like right here.
Maybe that one. Maybe that door looks interesting. Press T. So what we can do is set a marker, and we can customize the details of that marker. Now, what you'll notice as well is as we set markers, there's metadata that is encoded into each of these markers on top of the customized name that we can specify. So we can mark as many markers as we want in this map. And these are all saved to our data bank. And we can eventually share these markers and even sell these markers on the market.
So again, is it going to happen? Who knows at this point? I mean, I think it will. I think it's where they're headed. But my point isn't necessarily that you have to believe what he's saying here. It's more so that if you believe the Inside Star Citizen, I think it's worth at least looking at what they've also said in these segments. And being able to save and transfer data points is just another part of exploration. We're not quite done just yet. Let's go back to Inside Star Citizen last year. I'm actually really glad you brought that up. I don't know how I forgot about this. Where they said last year, again, that people would be finding transient jump points that take you to different star systems as a part of exploration. But that has just completely disappeared from some people's minds because of this Inside Star Citizen.
Transient jump points are more ethereal.
First you have to find them, and once you've found them, you don't know where they go.
Okay, so he literally just said first you have to find them, right? Confirmation that they have plans for us to find transient jump points as part of gameplay.
We like to call in the narrative team the Swiss cheese approach to jump points, which are smaller access points to the main tunnel. Those will still be restricted by small, medium, and large. So basically it opens up opportunities for smaller ships to kind of sneak their way through.
A transient jump point may only be able to be used once. It may be a little bit more permanent, but you can never tell how long does it last once you find it.
If people are looking to avoid scrutiny, we'll look for these sort of side routes to get into the jump point to bypass, security or customs or stuff like that.
In 4.0, our first and only jump point.
It's another reminder of another facet of exploration. Transient jump points, back doors into star systems that aren't permanent, that you could be the only person who knows about. Imagine how much money you could sell that location for if it was really useful for some kind of an ongoing conflict in a game or something, like for smuggling even. These are, again, things that maybe you don't want to use, but as an explorer, you can find, save that data point, and then send it to somebody else, sell it on the market, just like they said in that other video. There are things to be annoyed with in Star Citizen's development, but a random statement about something that has received a lot of detailed statements about in the past already, and that is not actually a definitive statement about that gameplay. I think we need to be a little more investigative about that stuff. So hopefully this opened up some information for folks and you got something out of it. Maybe you enjoyed it. Either way, Thank you for watching.